The silver ship moved through space without making a sound. Inside the huge vessel, Commander Zeltar stood looking at a blue and green planet through the wide window. His tall, thin body cast a shadow on the metal floor. His skin was pale blue, and his large black eyes never blinked as he watched the world below. "Commander," said Dr. Kethfer as he walked up behind him. The doctor carried a flat device that showed moving pictures and numbers. "We are ready to begin the tests on the new species." Zeltar turned his head slowly. "Good. How many worlds have we tested this year, Doctor?" 47, sir. None have passed our detection trials. Most species cannot hide from our scanners." "For more than 10 minutes," the commander nodded. For 300 years, his people had traveled the galaxy looking for new races to join their federation. They had rules that all new members had to follow. One important rule was that they had to prove they could survive against advanced enemies. The test was simple. The aliens would hunt them using the best technology in the galaxy. If the new species could hide for 24 hours, they would pass. No one had ever passed. "Tell me about these humans," Zeltar said, as they walked down the long hallway of the ship. Dr. Kethfer touched his device. Pictures of humans appeared in the air. Above it, they are young as a space-traveling race. They have only left their planet a few times. Their technology is basic. They still use chemical weapons and simple computers. Interesting. What makes them different? They fight each other often. They have many different groups and ideas. But when they face a common enemy, they work together very well. Our scouts say they are very good at surviving in difficult places. They entered a large room filled with screens and blinking lights. Other aliens worked at control stations preparing for the test. Captain Zixith stood at the center, his forearms moving quickly as he checked different systems. "Captain," Commander Zeltar called out, "are your hunting teams ready?" Zixith turned around. His red eyes glowed as he spoke. "Yes, Commander. We have 20 drones with thermal scanners, electromagnetic sensors, and quantum field detectors. We also have heartbeat sensors that can find a living creature from 5 miles away. The humans will not be able to hide from us." Dr. Kethfer smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Our technology has never failed. We can see through any material, detect any heat source, and track any living thing. These humans use mud and plants to hide from each other. It is very primitive." Meanwhile, on the planet below, Marine Sergeant Jake Collins sat in a small room with 11 other soldiers. The walls were plain white, and the only furniture was metal chairs and a table. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stood at the front of the room holding a folder. "Listen up, everyone," she said in a clear, strong voice. "You have been chosen for a special training exercise. You will be tested against an enemy using advanced technology. Your job is to hide and survive for 24 hours in the forest." "Private." Danny Wright raised his hand. "Ma'am, what kind of technology are we talking about?" "Heat sensors, night vision, motion detectors. The most advanced equipment you can imagine. This is not a normal training exercise. The enemy will be trying very hard to find you." Jake Collins listened carefully but did not ask questions. He was 32 years old and had been in the military for 14 years. He had brown hair, green eyes, and quiet way of speaking. While the other soldiers talked nervously, Jake thought about his grandfather. His grandfather had taught him to hunt when he was 8 years old. They would spend weeks in the woods of Virginia learning to track deer and other animals. His grandfather had grown up during hard times and knew how to live off the land. He taught Jake that technology was not always the answer. "The forest is alive," his grandfather used to say. "If you learn to listen to it, it will help you. If you fight against it, it will defeat you." Staff Sergeant Rick Murphy leaned over to Jake. "What do you think about this, Collins?" "Sounds like some kind of new warfare training," Jake shrugged. "Could be. We will find out soon enough." Corporal Lisa Bennett looked worried. "Advanced technology sounds scary. How are we supposed to hide from heat sensors?" "There are ways," Jake said quietly. "Old ways that still work." Lieutenant Rodriguez continued her briefing. "You will be taken to a 50-square-mile area of forest. You can bring standard military equipment, but no radios or electronic devices. The test begins at sunrise tomorrow. Questions? Danny Wright spoke up again. What happens if we get caught? You will be marked as eliminated and removed from the exercise. The goal is to have at least one person remain hidden for the full 24 hours. After the briefing, the soldiers were taken to a supply room to choose their equipment. Most of them picked camouflage nets, thermal blankets, and other modern military gear. Jake walked past all of that and chose simple items: a knife, rope, a small shovel, and a water bottle. Rick Murphy watched him with confusion. That's all you're taking? It's all I need, Jake replied. That night, Jake lay on his bunk thinking about the forest. He had grown up in woods just like where they would be tomorrow. He knew every sound the trees made, how the wind moved through different types of leaves, and where animals liked to hide. While the other soldiers studied their equipment manuals, Jake closed his eyes and remembered his grandfather's lessons in space above them, the alien ship prepared for the hunt. Captain Zixith checked his weapons and scanners one more time. His hunting party consisted of 12 aliens, each equipped with the most advanced detection equipment in the galaxy. These humans will be easy prey, he told his team. Our sensors can detect a heartbeat from 5 miles away. We can see their body heat through solid rock. We can track their electromagnetic signatures even if they bury themselves underground. Dr. Kethver watched from the command center as shuttles prepared to launch. Commander, I predict we will locate all humans within the first 2 hours. Their primitive hiding methods cannot work against our technology. Commander Zeltar nodded. Begin the test at sunrise. I want detailed recordings of everything. This data will help us evaluate future species. As dawn approached, Jake Collins sat by his window looking at the dark forest. His grandfather had died 5 years ago, but Jake could still hear his voice clearly. Jake, boy, remember this. Animals have been hiding from predators for millions of years. They don't use machines or fancy equipment. They use what nature gives. The mud to hide their smell, plants to break up their shape, patience to wait for the right moment. The best camouflage is not what you put on, but how well you become part of the world around you. Jake smiled quietly. Tomorrow he would find out if those old lessons could work against alien technology. He did not know that the aliens watching from space had never encountered anyone who truly understood how to disappear into nature. They had tested hundreds of species, but all of them had tried to use technology to fight technology. Jake Collins was about to teach them that sometimes the oldest ways were the best ways. The sun began to rise over the Virginia forest, and both sides prepared for a test that would change everything they thought they knew about hiding and seeking. The sun rose slowly over the Virginia forest, painting the sky orange and pink. Mist hung between the tall trees like ghostly fingers. Jake Collins stood at the edge of the tree line with the other soldiers, watching the darkness fade away. He took a deep breath of the cool morning air and smiled. This was home. All right, people, Lieutenant Rodriguez called out. The exercise begins now. Good luck to all of you. The 12 soldiers scattered in different directions. Most of them moved quickly, trying to get as far away as possible before the hunters arrived. Jake Collins walked slowly into the forest, his eyes scanning the ground and trees around him. He was not in a hurry. Above them in the sky, 3 alien shuttles descended silently through the clouds. They were black and smooth, making no sound as they moved. Inside the lead shuttle, Captain Zixith watched his screens with excitement. Beginning. Scan now, he announced to his team. Thermal sensors online. Electromagnetic detectors active. Heartbeat scanners ready. Dr. Kethver watched from the command ship high above. His instruments showed the locations of all 12 humans as bright dots on his screen. Excellent. All targets are clearly visible. This should be completed within 2 hours. On the ground, Jake Collins found what he was looking for. A small creek ran through a low area of the forest. The water was dark brown and muddy from recent rain. Thick mud covered the banks, mixed with rotting leaves and dead plants. Most people would find the smell unpleasant, but Jake smiled when he saw it. He set down his small pack and began to undress. The morning air was cold against his skin, but he ignored the discomfort. His grandfather had taught him that comfort was the enemy of survival. He waded into the muddy water up to his waist. The mud was thick and sticky. Jake scooped up handfuls of it and began to cover his entire body. He rubbed it into his hair, over his face, and down his arms and legs. The mud was cold and smelled of decay, but Jake knew it would hide his scent from any tracking system. Meanwhile, the alien hunting party had landed and begun their search. Captain Zixith carried a device that looked like a small silver rectangle. It showed him the location of every human in the forest as glowing dots. "Target 1 located," announced Hunter Vexen, pointing his scanner toward the north. 1 mile from here, moving toward the river. "Target 2 and 3 together," added Hunter Colas. "Half a mile east, hiding behind large rocks." Captain Zixith was pleased. "Excellent. Mark their positions and continue scanning. This is exactly what we expected." Staff Sergeant Rick Murphy had found a thick group of pine trees and was setting up his camouflage net. He pulled thermal blankets around himself and lay down behind a fallen log. Within minutes, an alien drone appeared overhead, its blue scanning beam sweeping back and forth across the forest floor. The drone stopped directly above Rick's position. The beam focused on his hiding spot, and a mechanical voice spoke from the machine. "Human target located. Thermal signature confirmed. Heartbeat detected. Target marked for elimination." Rick cursed under his breath as the drone dropped a red flag next to him. He was out of the game. 2 miles away, Corporal Lisa Bennett was trying to confuse the sensors with electronic equipment. She had wrapped herself in special material designed to block heat signatures and was using a small device to create false electromagnetic signals. For a few minutes it seemed to work. Then 3 drones appeared overhead at once. Their scanners cut through her defenses easily. "Human target located. Multiple detection methods confirm. Target marked for elimination." Another red flag dropped from the sky. Jake Collins was still working with the mud. He had covered every inch of his body with the thick, smelly mixture, but that was only the beginning. He began to gather materials from the forest floor. Long grass, fallen branches, strips of bark, and clumps of moss. He wove them together with his hands, creating a cover that looked like natural forest debris. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Jake, the secret is not to look like something else. The secret is to become part of what is already there." Jake pulled on his muddy clothes and began to attach the natural materials to his uniform. He worked slowly and carefully, making sure everything looked random and natural. Twigs stuck out at odd angles. Moss hung down like it had grown there. Grass and leaves covered every surface. By noon, 8 of the 12 soldiers had been found and eliminated. Private Danny Wright lasted the longest of the conventional hiders, staying hidden for almost 3 hours before the alien scanners located him in a cave. Captain Zixith was feeling confident. Only 4 humans remain. This is taking longer than expected, but well within normal parameters. Dr. Kethver frowned as he studied his readings. "Captain, I am showing some unusual data. One of the remaining targets appears to be stationary." "Stationary how?" "Not moving at all. For the past 2 hours, Target 7 has not moved more than a few feet." Captain Zixith checked his own scanner. "Probably injured or trapped. We will locate him soon enough." What they did not know was that Jake Collins had found the perfect hiding spot. An old oak tree had fallen years ago, creating a natural shelter. Jake had hollowed out a space underneath the massive trunk. Using his small shovel to dig carefully into the soft earth, he had lined the space with mud and organic material, making it look like nothing more than a natural depression in the forest floor. Jake lay inside his hiding place, covered completely with his camouflage of mud and vegetation. Only his eyes and nose were visible, and even those were hidden behind carefully placed leaves. A thin reed, cut from the creek bank, allowed him to breathe while keeping his mouth hidden. Jake had learned this trick from his grandfather, who had learned it from his grandfather before him. It was an old technique used by hunters and soldiers for hundreds of years. The alien drones passed overhead. Many times. Their thermal scanners showed the warm log above Jake, but the mud on his body had cooled to match the temperature of the earth around him. The electromagnetic sensors detected the natural iron in the soil, but Jake's slow heartbeat and shallow breathing created no unusual readings. Most importantly, Jake had learned to be patient. While the other soldiers grew nervous and moved around, Jake remained perfectly still. He had spent entire days motionless in deer stands, waiting for the right moment. This was no different by late afternoon. Only Jake and one other soldier remained hidden. Corporal Maria Santos had found a thick patch of brambles and was lying motionless inside the thorny bush. She had been there for 6 hours, and her body was cramped and sore. An alien drone appeared above her position. Its scanners swept back and forth, but the thick vegetation interfered with some of the readings. For a moment it seemed like she might avoid detection. Then Captain Zixith arrived with a more powerful scanner. The new device cut through the interference easily. Human target located. Vital signs detected. Target marked for elimination. Maria watched sadly as another red flag fell from the sky. She had lasted longer than most, but the alien technology was simply too advanced. Now only Jake Collins remained. Dr. Kethver stared at his screens in confusion. Commander, we have eliminated 11 of 12 targets, but the last one... I cannot explain this reading. Commander Zeltar moved closer to look at the data. What do you mean? The scanners show natural forest patterns in the area where Target 7 should be. No thermal signature above background levels. No electromagnetic anomalies. No heartbeat detection. But our initial scan clearly showed a human in that location. Perhaps he escaped the test area. Impossible, sir. We have sensors around the entire perimeter. Nothing larger than a small animal has crossed the boundary. Captain Zixith landed his shuttle near Jake's last known position. He carried his most advanced scanner, a device that had never failed to locate a living target. The machine hummed quietly as it analyzed the area. Scanning now, Zixith reported. I am detecting normal forest activity, some small animals. Background. Thermal signatures from rocks and trees, no human presence. He walked directly over Jake's hiding spot, his boots passing within inches of the hidden Marine's head. The scanner in his hands showed nothing unusual. To the alien device, the area registered as empty ground covered with natural forest debris. Jake Collins lay perfectly still, his breathing slow and controlled. Mud-covered insects crawled over his camouflaged form, but he did not move. His grandfather had taught him that the forest was full of small discomforts, and learning to ignore them was part of becoming invisible. As the sun began to set, the alien hunting party gathered to discuss their failure. For the first time in 300 years of testing, they had lost track of a target completely. This is impossible, Dr. Kethver muttered, checking his instruments again and again. Our technology does not fail. There must be an explanation. But Jake Collins had already proven that sometimes the oldest ways were still the best ways. The real test was just beginning. The sun had been down for 2 hours. Captain Zixith stood in the middle of the forest, his forearms gesturing wildly as he spoke into his communication device. His red eyes glowed brighter when he was angry, and right now they looked like burning. Coles, Commander, we have searched this area 12 times. Our scanners show nothing. The human has simply vanished. Commander Zeltar's voice crackled through the speaker. That is impossible, Captain. No species in the galaxy can hide from our detection systems. Check your equipment again. I have checked everything 3 times, sir. All systems are working perfectly. We can detect the smallest insect, every warm rock, even underground water sources, but the human is gone. 20 feet away, Jake Collins lay motionless under his fallen log. He had not moved for 8 hours except to breathe slowly through his reed. His body was stiff and cold, but his mind was alert. He could hear every word the alien spoke. Dr. Kethver materialized next to the captain. The alien scientist had transported down from the ship with his most advanced equipment. He carried devices that Jake had never seen before, machines that hummed and beeped as they scanned the forest. "Captain, I am reading your report with great concern," Dr. Kethver said, his voice high and nervous. "In 300 years of testing, we have never lost a target for more than 30 minutes. This human has been missing for over 10 hours. What do you suggest, Doctor?" Dr. Kethver activated a large device that looked like a silver dish. "This is a quantum phase scanner. It can detect life forms through solid matter by reading quantum field fluctuations. Nothing alive can hide from it." The device sent out waves of energy that Jake could not see or hear, but he could feel something strange, like a gentle pressure against his skin. The scanner swept over his hiding spot multiple times. "Interesting," Dr. Kethver muttered, studying his readings. "I am detecting normal quantum fluctuations from plant life, soil bacteria, and decomposing organic matter, but no large life forms." Jake remained perfectly still. His grandfather had taught him about patience during long hunting trips. "Some days you sit in the cold for 10 hours and see nothing," the old man had said. "Other days you sit in the cold for 10 hours and get the biggest buck of your life. The difference is not giving up." Captain Zixith was becoming frustrated. "Doctor, are you certain this human did not somehow escape the test area? Impossible. We have motion sensors along every boundary. A human cannot move faster than our detection grid can track." What they did not understand was that Jake had barely moved at all. While they expected him to run and hide like the other soldiers, he had found one perfect spot and became part of it. The mud on his body had dried into a hard shell that matched the temperature of the earth around him. Insects had made small nests in his camouflage, and moss was actually starting to grow on the organic material he had woven into his disguise. Dr. Kethver pulled out another device. "This is a gravitational anomaly detector. Every living body creates a small distortion in local gravity. Even if the human is completely motionless, we should be able to detect his mass." The new scanner hummed quietly as it analyzed the area. Jake felt another strange sensation, like a gentle pulling from different directions, but his body was pressed so tightly against the earth, and his weight was distributed so evenly that the readings blended with the natural variations in the forest floor. "Still nothing," Dr. Kethver said, shaking his head. "The readings show normal gravitational patterns. Some variation from the large fallen tree, but nothing that indicates a human presence." Meanwhile, on the command ship above, Commander Zeltar paced back and forth in front of his viewing screen. Other aliens watched nervously as their leader grew more agitated with each report from the surface. "Bring in the telepathic scanners," Commander Zeltar ordered. "If we cannot detect his body, perhaps we can detect his mind." 3 aliens with large, pale heads materialized in the forest near Captain Zixith. These were the Jeel, a race known for their ability to sense thoughts and emotions from great distances. They stood in a triangle formation and closed their large, dark eyes. "We are scanning for human thought patterns," the lead Jeel announced in a whispering voice. "Human minds have a distinctive electromagnetic signature. We should be able to locate him easily." Jake felt a strange tingling in his head, like someone was trying to look inside his thoughts. But his grandfather had taught him meditation techniques for staying calm during long hunts. Jake focused on becoming empty, thinking of nothing but the forest around him. He imagined his mind as still and quiet as a deep pond. The Jeel opened their eyes and looked confused. "We sense human thoughts, but they are faint and scattered, like echoes or memories rather than active consciousness." "What does that mean?" Captain Zixith demanded. "Either the human is dead, or his mind has achieved a state we do not understand. A kind of mental camouflage." Dr. Kethver was now pulling devices from storage containers that Jake had never imagined could exist. One machine created a grid of laser light that covered the entire search area. Another device released small flying robots that swarmed through the forest like metal insects. "These micro-drones can detect DNA traces," Dr. Kethver explained. "They will find any biological material left by the human." Skin cells, hair, even dried sweat. The tiny robots buzzed through the air around Jake's position. Several of them landed on his camouflaged form, but they read his covering as natural forest debris. The mud and organic matter had created a biochemical signature that matched the surrounding environment perfectly. "Doctor," one of the drone operators reported, "we are finding human DNA traces throughout the forest. But they are old traces, probably from when the human first entered the area. No fresh biological signatures." Captain Zixith threw his scanner on the ground in frustration. "This is ridiculous. The human cannot have simply disappeared." But Jake Collins had not disappeared. He had done something much more difficult. He had become invisible by becoming part of the world around him. Every breath he took was slow and shallow. His heartbeat had slowed to almost nothing through deep meditation. His body temperature matched the earth beneath him. Most importantly, Jake had learned to think like the forest itself. Instead of fighting against his environment, he had joined it. The aliens kept looking for something human, but Jake had temporarily stopped being human in any way their technology could detect. As midnight approached, Dr. Kethver made a decision that no alien scientist had ever made before. "Commander, I request permission to recalibrate all detection equipment. Our instruments may have a flaw we have never discovered." "Granted," came the reply from orbit. "But doctor, our equipment has been tested against thousands of species. It has never failed." "Then perhaps," Dr. Kethver said quietly, "we are dealing with something we have never encountered before." The aliens spent the next 4 hours running diagnostic tests on every piece of equipment. They found nothing wrong. Every scanner, detector, and sensor was working perfectly. The problem was not with their technology. The problem was that Jake Collins had learned lessons that were older than technology itself. As dawn began to break on the second day, Jake allowed himself a small smile. He had been motionless for over 18 hours, but he was not tired. This was what his grandfather had trained him for, even though the old man never knew his lessons would be used against visitors from the stars. Above ground, the aliens were beginning to panic. They had brought reinforcements, more equipment, and even specialists from other ships. Nothing worked. The human had achieved something that should have been impossible. Jake Collins had become truly invisible, not through advanced technology, but through the most basic skill of all, understanding how to be part of the natural world around him. The hunt was about to become something completely different. The rain started at sunrise on the second day. Heavy drops fell through the thick tree branches, creating a steady drumming sound on the forest floor. Jake Collins smiled inside his muddy hiding place. Rain was exactly what he needed. The water refreshed the mud coating on his body, keeping it soft and cool. It washed away any scent traces that might have built up during the long night. Most importantly, the rain created noise that would cover any small sounds he might make. Jake slowly moved his fingers and toes, working out the stiffness from lying still for so long. He did this very carefully, making tiny movements that looked like natural settling of the forest debris around him. His grandfather had taught him that even when hiding, a hunter needed to keep his blood flowing. "The forest is always moving," his grandfather had said. "Leaves fall, branches sway, small animals scurry around. If you move like the forest moves, you become part of it." 50 yards away, Captain Zixith stood under a portable shelter, watching the rain fall. His team had been searching for 20 hours without success. Never in his military career had he faced such a complete failure. "Captain," came Dr. Kethver's voice through the communication device, "I have reviewed all sensor data from the past day. I believe I have discovered something." "Important. What is it, Doctor?" "The human is not hiding from our technology. He is doing something else. Something we have never seen before." Captain Zixith felt confusion rather than anger now. "Explain." "Our scanners are working perfectly. They detect everything in the forest. Trees, rocks, soil, insects, even underground water. But they are not detecting the human because the human has somehow made himself register as part of the forest itself." "That is impossible. I thought so too, but look at this data." Dr. Kethver transmitted readings to the captain's device. In the area where we last detected the human, our scanners show only natural forest elements, but the pattern is too perfect, too balanced. Nature is usually more random. Jake Collins had begun to move, very slowly, using the sound of rain to cover any noise. He crawled out from under his fallen log. He stayed low, moving like a snake through the wet undergrowth. Every few minutes he stopped completely, becoming motionless for long periods. His grandfather's hunting lessons guided every movement. When you move, think like a deer. They stop, listen, smell the air, then move a little more. Fast movements catch the eye. Slow, natural movements are invisible. Jake was not just hiding anymore. He had decided to turn the tables on his hunters. While they looked for him, he would study them. He would learn how their technology worked, and how they thought. Most importantly, he would prove that they were not as clever as they believed. The rain made this much easier. The alien equipment had some problems with the weather. Their thermal sensors could not work as well when everything was wet and cool. Their movement detectors were confused by falling water and swaying branches. Jake crawled through the forest for 2 hours, stopping often to listen and observe. He learned that the aliens made noise when they walked. Their boots clicked on rocks and their equipment beeped and hummed. They talked to each other constantly, reporting their positions and findings. Finally, Jake found what he was looking for. Captain Zixith had set up a command post near a small clearing. The alien leader stood alone, studying a large scanner that showed a map of the entire search area. He was completely focused on his technology and not paying attention to his surroundings. This was exactly the kind of mistake that would get a hunter killed back home. Jake's grandfather always said that the most dangerous moment was when you thought you were safe. Jake moved closer, using skills he had learned tracking white-tailed deer through thick brush. He stayed downwind so his scent would not carry. He used a sound of rain to mask his movement. Most importantly, he moved only when the alien was looking at his scanner. Within an hour, Jake had positioned himself less than 20 feet from Captain Zixith. He lay behind a fallen branch, covered in mud and vegetation, invisible to both eyes and technology. From this position, he could hear everything the alien said. "Dr. Keffer," Captain Zixith spoke into his device. "I'm beginning to think this. Human has abilities we do not understand." "Impossible, Captain. Humans are a primitive species. They barely understand basic physics." "Then explain how one of them has evaded our detection for over 20 hours. Jake almost laughed. "These aliens thought they were so advanced, but they made basic mistakes that any experienced hunter would avoid. They were loud, predictable, and overconfident. They relied completely on their technology and ignored the simple skills that had kept humans alive for thousands of years. The rain began to fall harder. Jake used the increased noise to move even closer to the alien command post. Now he was only 10 feet away from Captain Zixith, close enough to see the frustration in the alien's glowing red eyes. "Captain," came another voice through the communication device. "This is Hunter Vexen. I have an idea. What if we flood the entire forest with scanning energy? Use so much power that nothing can hide from it? Will that work, Doctor?" "Captain," Zixith asked, "theoretically, yes. But it would use enormous amounts of energy, and it might damage the local ecosystem." "Do it." Jake listened to this conversation with growing interest. The aliens were becoming desperate. They were willing to damage the forest just to find one human. This told him something important about how their minds worked. They saw technology as the answer to every problem, but Jake knew that nature was more complex than any machine. His grandfather had taught him that the forest had its own intelligence, its own ways of protecting itself and the creatures that lived in it. The aliens could flood the area with scanning energy, but Jake would find a way to use the forest's natural properties to defeat them. As the aliens prepared their new scanning equipment, Jake began to move again. He had learned enough about their technology and their thinking. Now it was time to show them something they would never expect. Jake crawled to a small stream that ran through the forest. The water was running fast because of the rain, and it was deep enough to hide in. More importantly, moving water would interfere with many types of scanning equipment. He slipped into the cold stream and let the current carry him downstream. The water was muddy and dark, perfect for hiding. Jake floated on his back, keeping only his nose above the surface, breathing through his mouth to avoid making bubbles. The stream carried him in a wide circle around the alien search area. Jake used this time to study their positions and movements from a completely different angle. He could see their weaknesses more clearly now. The aliens had surrounded the area where they thought he was hiding. They had sensors and guards at every exit, but they were all facing inward, trying to find him inside their circle. None of them were watching for someone who might be moving around the outside. Jake smiled as he floated past 3 alien hunters who were standing on the bank of the stream. They were so focused on their scanners that they never looked down at the water. One of them was standing directly above Jake as he passed underneath. After following the stream for an hour, Jake climbed out at a point behind the alien command post. Now he was outside their search area, in a position they would never expect. The aliens thought they were hunting him, but Jake had turned the situation around. He was now hunting them. Jake spent the rest of the day moving through the forest like a ghost. He observed every alien position, studied every piece of their equipment, and learned their patrol patterns. He moved so carefully that he was never more than 30 feet from alien hunters, but they never detected him. As evening approached, Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of continuing to hide, he would prove that human skills were superior to alien technology. He would show them that they were not the hunters. They were the prey. The rain continued to fall as Jake Collins prepared to teach the aliens the most important lesson they would ever learn about the power of patience, skill, and understanding the natural world. The sun was setting on the second day when Jake Collins made his final move. He had been watching Captain Zixith for 6 hours, studying every detail of the aliens' behavior. The captain stood alone at his command post, frustrated and confused. His glowing red eyes stared at scanners that showed nothing but empty forest. Jake lay 15 feet away, hidden behind what looked like a pile of rotting logs and leaves. But he was not hiding anymore. He was preparing to end this test in a way the aliens would never forget. "Dr. Kethver," Captain Zixith spoke into his communication device. "The high-energy scan is ready?" "Yes, Captain. But I must warn you again. This level of scanning energy has never been used on a living planet. We do not know what effects it might have. I do not care about effects. We must find this human." Jake listened to this conversation and felt anger rise in his chest. These aliens were willing to damage his world just to save their pride. They could not accept that a human with mud and sticks had beaten their advanced technology. His grandfather's voice spoke in his memory. "Jake, sometimes you have to step out of the shadows and face your enemy directly. But you only do this when you are certain you can win." Jake was certain. He began to move very slowly, crawling through the wet leaves toward Captain Zixith. Every few seconds he stopped completely, becoming part of the forest floor again. The alien never looked away from his scanners. When Jake was only 5 feet away, he carefully reached into his pack and pulled out a small stone. He threw it gently to the left, where it landed in a bush with a soft rustling sound. Captain Zixith's head turned toward the noise. His scanner immediately focused on that area, searching for the source of the disturbance. While the alien was distracted, Jake moved the final few feet. Now Jake Collins was close enough to touch the alien's leg. Captain Zixith stood directly above him, completely unaware that his prey had become his hunter. Jake's scanner showed the area as empty ground covered with natural debris. Jake took a deep breath and slowly rose from what had appeared to be a pile of forest waste. Mud and vegetation fell away from his body as he stood up. Twigs and moss hung from his clothes like he was a creature made from the forest itself. "Test complete," Jake said in a calm, quiet voice. "You have been under observation for the past 6 hours. Captain Zixith spun around so fast that he almost fell over. His forearms reached for weapons that were not there. His red eyes grew wide with shock as he stared at the muddy figure that had appeared from nowhere. "Impossible," the alien whispered. "You were not there. My scanners showed nothing." Jake smiled, showing white teeth through his mud-covered face. Your scanners were right. There was nothing there but forest. I became part of the forest. Captain Zixith looked down at his scanner. The device still showed no human presence, even though Jake was standing right in front of him. The machine registered Jake's position as natural forest debris with no life signs. This is impossible, Captain Zixith repeated, his voice growing louder. Our technology does not fail. Your technology worked perfectly, Jake replied. It told you exactly what was there. Mud, dead plants, rotting wood, and insects. You were looking for a human, but I stopped being human in any way your machines could understand. On the command ship above, alarms began ringing. Dr. Kethver stared at his screens in amazement as Jake's vital signs suddenly appeared on sensors that had shown empty forest moments before. Commander, Dr. Kethver called out, the human has reappeared, but that is not possible. Our continuous scans showed nothing in that location. Commander Zeltar rushed to the viewing screen. Explain this immediately. I cannot explain it, sir. According to our instruments, a human just materialized. From nothing. But humans do not have teleportation technology. Down in the forest, more aliens were arriving at the command post. They surrounded Jake with weapons ready, but none of them could understand what they were seeing. Their scanner showed a human. Now, but the same scanners had shown empty ground moments before. Jake stood calmly in the center of the circle, water dripping from his muddy camouflage. I can explain what happened, if you want to listen. Dr. Kethver materialized next to Captain Zixith, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. Yes, human, we must understand this. Our technology has never failed before. Jake nodded and began to remove the natural materials from his clothing. Your technology did not fail. It worked exactly as designed. You have machines that can detect humans, but I did not try to hide from your machines. I became something that was not human. That is impossible. No, it is very possible. Your scanners look for human heat signatures. I covered myself with mud that matched the temperature of the ground. Your machines detect human scent chemicals. I masked my scent with decaying plant matter. Your equipment finds human electromagnetic patterns. I slowed my heartbeat and breathing until they matched natural forest rhythms. Dr. Kethver pulled out a recording device. Continue? Most importantly, I learned to think like the forest thinks. Your machines look for something that is fighting against nature, trying to hide from nature, but I joined nature instead. I became part of what was already there. Jake pointed to the fallen log where he had spent the first night. I was under that log for 18 hours. Your machines scanned me dozens of times, but they did not see a human hiding under a log. They saw a log lying on the ground with normal forest debris around it, because that is exactly what I had become. Captain Zixith lowered his weapons, his anger replaced by confusion. But how did you move without detection? How did you get so close to me? I moved the way animals move. Slowly, patiently, in harmony with the natural world around me. I studied your patterns, learned your weaknesses, and used your overconfidence against you. You were so busy looking for advanced technology that you missed the simple truth right in front of you. Commander Zeltar's voice came through the communication device. Bring the human to the ship immediately. We must understand this phenomenon. Jake shook his head. I will not go to your ship, but I will answer your questions here. You are not in a position to make demands, human. Jake smiled again. Actually, I am. While you were looking for me, I was studying you. I know your patrol patterns, your equipment limitations, and your blind spots. I could have approached any of you at any time during the past day. I chose to reveal myself to prove a point, not because I was caught. Dr. Kethver looked at his instruments again. This is revolutionary. We have tested thousands of species, and none have ever achieved this level of natural camouflage. How is this possible? It is possible because humans learn to survive by working with nature, not against it. We are not the strongest or fastest species, so we learn to be smart and adaptable. We learn to use what was around us instead of trying to change everything to suit our needs. Jake began walking toward the edge of the clearing. Your test is over. You wanted to see if humans could survive against advanced technology? I have shown you that we can do more than survive. We can become invisible to your most sophisticated equipment using nothing but mud and patience. Wait, Captain Zixif called out. Where are you going? Home. Your 24-hour test ended 6 hours ago? I won. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stepped out from behind a tree, followed by other human military personnel who had been watching from a safe distance. She looked at Jake with amazement and respect. Outstanding work, Sergeant Collins. I have never seen anything like that performance. Jake nodded to her, then looked back at the aliens. You came here thinking you would teach us something about survival. Instead, you learned that sometimes the oldest ways are still the best ways. Your technology is impressive, but it cannot replace understanding, patience, and respect for the natural world. Dr. Kethver was still recording everything. This will change our entire approach to evaluating new species. We have been looking for technological advancement, but you have shown us that there are other kinds of intelligence that are equally valuable. Commander Zeltara's voice came through the speaker again. Human, your species has passed our test. In a way we never expected. We would like to invite Earth to join the Galactic Federation. Jake Collins looked up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. That is not my decision to make. But I hope your people will remember this lesson. Technology is a tool, but wisdom is knowing when not to use it. As the aliens packed their equipment and prepared to leave, Jake walked back into the forest. He had mud to wash off and a report to write. But mostly, he wanted to find a quiet place to thank his grandfather for lessons that had proven useful in ways the old man never could have imagined. The forest welcomed him back with the sound of wind in the trees and the smell of earth after rain. Jake Collins smiled and disappeared into the darkness, invisible once again.